All right, so welcome back again, guys. The next thing we're going to be talking about now is a DOS, which stands for a denial of service. So when we're talking about denial of service, what does that mean? A denial of service is an attack that is coming from a single source to a single system. A denial of service, which is what we call a DOS, is an attack that's coming from a single source to a single system. But we still have another type that we call DDoS. That DDoS is also what they call distributed denial of service. DOS is called denial of service and DDoS is called distributed denial of service. So as I explained to you, a DOS is an attack that is coming from a single source to a single system. Why a distributed denial of service is an attack that is coming from a multiple system against a single target. So I want you to know the difference between DOS and DDoS. DOS attack is coming from a single system to a single victim, where a DDoS is coming from a multiple system to a single victim. Okay, so here now says that the goal of this both attack is to prevent legitimate user from accessing services on the target computer. So the goals of a DOS and DDoS is to prevent the legitimate user from accessing the services that is running on the target computer. So many DOS and DDoS attempt to consume resources on the target computer. For instance, a sync flood attack consumes memory resources by flooding a system with half-open connection. So a bad guy can be sending a fake traffic to the victim just to consume the memory resources on the victim. Example, like a sync flood attack. A sync flood attack is going to consume the memory resources by flooding a system. It's going to be flooding a victim with a half-open connection. That's how it's going to be creating an half-open connection and it's going to flood that particular victim. And the real users of that particular system won't be able to use it anymore. So we have different type of a DOS. We have a pink flood attack as well. When attacker is pinging the victim to death, it's going to be pinging the victim for multiple times. And once the pinging is going more than the normal amount of pinging, the victim can end up crashing. And we have a sync flood attack that open the victim with a half open connection. So that's what a DOS attack is. When attacker wants to make sure that it deny the real legitimate users from accessing the victim computer by flooding the victim with a lot of fake traffic and resources. That is what a DOS is. So like what I explained, DOS attack is coming from a single system to a single target. DDoS coming from a multiple system to a single target. So the goal of these two guys is to prevent the legitimate user from accessing the services on the target and computer. For example, let's assume that a bad guy wants to perform DOS on a server that we hosted facebook.com on it. The bad guy can be sending a sync flood attack to the server, which means that the server is going to be receiving a sync flood attack that's going to be open a half open connection. Once it's creating the half open connection, anybody that wants to access facebook.com, what they're going to be saying is that they can't access this website. This website is an unavailable because the bad guy have already sent a lot of fake traffic to that particular web server. So that's how a DOS attack works. So with no more delay, we're moving into the demonstration and we're going to see how DOS attack works. So the first thing, we're going to open our Windows 10 and our Kali. So we're going to open our Windows 10 and our Kali. So what we're going to be doing here is that we'll be using this Windows 10 here as the victim. and we'll be using this Kali here as a attacker machine. Okay, so basically we have different command that we can use for this DOS. We have different command, but I have a couple of command here. I have a couple of command here that we're going to be using for this guy here. So the command we'll be using here, the first thing we're going to do is to launch the tools that we're going to be using, which is a MSF console. So we're going to type MSF console and we're going to hit enter key. So we're going to hit enter key and we hold on for the tools to come up. So we're going to hold on for the tools to come up. So let's hold on for this guy to come up. Going to hold on for the tools to come up until you see MSF6. All right, so once you type in MSF console, it's going to bring up the tools. You're going to see MSF version 6, which is the latest version of a Metasploit framework. Okay, so the next thing now is to use this command. This command says use. So here we're going to be typing it. So this command says use auxiliary /DOS/TCP and /sync flood. Hit enter key. So let me explain what this command is for you. So here says that use auxiliary. Hold on, let's see this, let this thing come up. There's a little error here. Use auxiliary. So there will be I here. Oh, so there's a typing error here. Use auxiliary /GOS. Okay. So here, what does this command means? This command means that we want to be launching a sync flood attack on that particular victim. So here we are using DOS. As we all know what DOS is, denial of service. And the type of DOS that wants to be carried out is a TCP sync flood. As we all know that TCP use three handshake. The first one, if a client wants to connect to a server, the client going to send a synchronized message to the server. And when the server receives the synchronized message, the server is going to respond with a synchronized acknowledge. When the server responds with synchronized acknowledge, the client is going to acknowledge back. That's a three handshake that TCP use. But this thing here, what we want to do now here is that we now want to be making an half open connection, which means that anytime that we send a synchronous message to the server, if the server respond with a synchronous acknowledge, we are not going to respond back. So we're only making an half connection. Once we send a synchronous message to the victim going to respond we are not going to respond again. We're still going to send another one. We're still not going to respond again. We're still going to send another one. That's how we're going to be sending the flood attack. Once we send a lot of flood attack and the victim going to be responding to us, we're going to send in another one. The reason why is that we are making that half connection is that once we send a synchronous message to the victim, which is the server, and the server respond back with a synchronous acknowledge. Once we now go back again and now send acknowledgement, the connection going to be open. But here we are making an half connection. So we are sending a message to the victim. The victim respond. We are not going to respond the victim again. We're still going to do the same thing. That's how we're going to be doing it. Once we keep doing it, the victim going to be respond to a time to a point that is going to be tired, and any other person that wants to be using the services on the victim going to the victim is not going to have their time again, because it's going to be keeping responding to our own traffic. That's how the DOS works. And anybody who wants to be using any services on the victim is not going to be possible anymore. Okay. So after that, the next thing is to set the R port. The next thing is to set the R port. Set R port. So before we can choose any R port, I need to check any open port on the victim. So we go to our Windows 10. So if you're in the Windows 10, you're going to type ipconfig to check where our IP address is. So the IP address of my Windows 10 is a 192.168.0.56. 192.168.0.56. So if I go to my Kali, I'm going to create a new terminal. So I'm going to be using nmap. I will be using nmap to check which open port that is open on the victim. We'll be using nmap to check which open port that is open on the victim. So if I type nmap space, IP address of our Windows 10 is a 192.168.0.10. Let's check again. 0.56. And I hit enter key. So we're going to hold on for nmap to scan the open port. So the reason why I want to scan the open port is that we want to make use of that port here. So here you're going to see that we have 5357 TCP that is open. So I can actually use this number 5357. So I will copy this number and I'm going to close this particular terminal here. So here, when I set the R port, I will set the R port on the port that I see that it is open on the victim. So I'm going to paste that particular port number and I hit enter key. Okay, you can't just choose any number. Make sure that you scan the victim and you make sure that the port number is open on the victim before you can specify the number here. So the next thing is to set the ROs. So I'm going to type set ROs. So as you all know, R port starts from a remote port, which is the port that is open on the victim. RO stands from a remote host, which is the IP address of the victim. So I'm going to put 192.168.0.56, which is the IP address of the Windows 10, and we're going to hit enter key. So after we specify the port and we specify the host, the next thing is to set the number. What does this thing mean? We want to set the number of this floor that we want to be sending, the number of traffic, the number of connection that we want to be sending to the victim. Okay, so if I send this thing and I put 1 million, 1 million means that I want to send like 1 millions of a traffic to that particular victim. If I put 0, zero is unlimited. You want to send unlimited. If I specify 10, I want to send 10 traffic to the victim. Okay, so here if I put it on 0, I hit enter key. So after that, you're going to exploit. You're going to launch that particular attack and you hit enter key. So you're going to see here SIM flooding to this particular victim on this particular port number is going to be like this, and it's going to be sending the flood to that particular Windows 10. Okay, so if you hold on for like hours on this Windows 10, you're going to see that everything you do on this Windows 10 is going to be coming slow. Everything that you'll be doing on the Windows 10. But yeah, we just launched the attack. The attack is not going to be taking action immediately like that. So if you leave this attack for some hours, everything that you do on this Windows 10 is going to be slow. So that's how a DOS attack is being carried out. And if you come here, you're going to see that the CPU of the Windows 10 is 100. It's telling you that this guy here is receiving a lot of traffic. Okay, you come to the performance. You're going to see the CPU usage. You're going to see the CPU usage, and you're going to see that it's very, very high. So that's how a DOS attack is being carried out. And if I stop this attack, you will see that the CPU is going to come back into normal. So for example, if I come to this attack and I use Ctrl Z to stop that particular attack, if you go back to this Windows 10, for example, I close here, and if I refresh, and we'll go back, this guy is supposed to be coming down. It's going to be coming down, small, going to be coming down. So that's how this thing works. Once you launch the attack, the CPU is going to be 100, which means that we have already consumed a lot of things on the victim memory. Okay, so that's the first place. There's another tools I'm going to be explaining to you.